Hello everyone, how are we doing? I was asked just before I came on stage to speak loudly because apparently the pickup of my mic needs some help. So if you can hear me at the back, just say yes as loudly as you can. Okay, you can't hear me. Well, you know, there is a method by which you can completely and immediately eliminate stress from your life. Have you ever asked yourself why there is stress in your life? Well, I've asked thousands of people these questions in 5 continents, and obviously I got dozens of answers, but they can be broadly categorized into several distinct categories. So let me go through those for you. There are 8 major factors why persons report they are undergoing stress. So these are the reasons that are generally reported for why people feel stress. The first is financial. You feel under pressure, there are bills to be paid, there are tuition fees to fulfill, mortgages, and somehow or other, it's difficult to make ends meet. So that's reason number 1. Reason number 2 are relationships. Generally with partner, but frequently with friends, colleagues, principals, in-laws, whatever. Relationships are not where you would like them to be. Children. Now we all know children are bundles of joy. They are supposed to make you fulfilled. How many of your parents in here? A whole bunch of you. Do you notice that while children are indeed sources of joy, sometimes they can contribute to the stress in your life? And it begins right from the day you were born. Have you noticed that sometimes babies poop right after you change their diapers? And as they grow older, they have a habit of falling in love with the most unsuitable persons and dropping out rather than going to law school. They do stuff like that. For teachers, there's a double whammy because not only do teachers have issues with their own children, they also have issues with other people's children. So it's a double whammy. Career. You want to be someplace in your career and you feel you're not making the progress that you would like. Health. You want to do the Ironman, you want to run the marathon, but your doctor informs you that you have this dread condition for which there may or may not be a remedy. Your health, the health of people around you, that is a major stressor. Then there is the big external stuff. And there's a lot of this big external stuff going on right now. I live in the United States, and I must tell you that I get up every day and I'm almost scared to read the headlines. Okay. Then there is the overwork thing. There's too much to do and not enough time to do it all. And last but not least is the general sense of dissatisfaction that you are not where you would like to be. You know, I even know persons who are stressed out because their meditation practice is not going as well as they would like it to be. So those, in my experience, are the categories that cause the most stress to persons. Have I covered all of that for you? Right? Actually, all of them are wrong. And if you think that you feel stressed because of one or more of these factors, I'd like to ask you to think again. Because there is only one reason that you feel stress. Let me repeat that. There is one and only one reason you feel stress. And the reason you feel stress is because you have a very rigid idea of how the universe should be, and the universe is not playing ball with you. Think about that. As long as you are in the human predicament, stuff will happen. There will be serious illness and death. There will be career reverses. There will be financial setbacks. There will be business problems. It's part of the human predicament. You will deal with them as appropriate, but you do not have to feel stress. You feel stress because you have a very, very rigid idea of this is the way it should be. And the universe, have any of you noticed the universe doesn't pay a lot of regard to how you would like things to be? Failure to accept that is what causes stress in your life. Now, you probably haven't thought about it this way, but I now invite you to think about it. Your entire life has been an unending quest to have control. You want to know what's going to happen tomorrow. You want to know what's going to happen the day after tomorrow. You want to know how your charges are going to behave. You want to know how your spouse is going to be. You want to know how your career is going to turn out. Right? Not only do you want to know, but you're determined to make it happen the way you would like it to. And in your head, you have this model. You know, I'm here and I want to be there, and if I do this, this, and this, I'm going to go from here to there. Sometimes you succeed, sometimes you don't. I'm going to say more about this a little bit later. But what I want you to recognize right now is that in your entire life, in all of the goals that you set, in all of the plans that you make, is this inbuilt thing. I want to have control. I want to know where I'm going to be. And darn it, I'm going to make it so. Okay? So your entire life is an unending quest for control. You do not have control. Not only do you not have control, but you never had control. And here is the good news. You never will have control. It's an illusion. What you have is the illusion of control. Never will have control. That's true in world affairs. We're seeing that very clearly now, and it's true in your personal life. Vision that I have for each one of you. The vision I have for you is that you get up in the morning and your blood is singing at the thought of being who you are and doing what you do. That as you go through the day, you come radiantly alive. That you could go to your knees in voluntary gratitude at the tremendous good fortune that's been bestowed on you. What I'm talking about is not a pipe dream, it is achievable. Not only is it achievable, it is achievable by you. And I'm going to share with you how you can begin the process of getting there. So there are a number of building blocks in that, so let me share them with you. The first one is something called mental chatter. Now, mental chatter is an internal monologue that you have going on in your head all the time. It begins when you get up in the morning, is with you right through the day, is with you right now when you should be listening to my chatter instead of your chatter. Chatter has always been with you. It's like an unwelcome relative who's shown up and you can't throw him out. So what do? You live your life in spite of your mental chatter. You try to ignore it. You try to suppress it. You work around it. And you live your life. You ignore your mental chatter, and that's a huge, huge, huge mistake. And the reason it's a huge mistake is, though you do not recognize it, you construct your life with your mental chatter. You think you live in a real world. You don't. You live in a construct. And you made that construct with your mental chatter and your mental models. A mental model is a notion that you have that this is the way the world works. And you've got dozens of models, possibly hundreds of models. Some of these models may be in conflict with each other, and you may or may not be aware of the conflicts. There's no problem with having mental models. Mental models are wonderful devices. They help you make sense of unstructured situations. They save you time. The problem is not that you have mental models. The problem is that you don't recognize that you have mental models. You think this is the way the world works. But this is not the way the world works. This is your model of this is the way the world works. And the more you believe in your model, the more evidence you seem to get that this, in fact, is the way the world works. And very soon you build a silo around yourself that's so thick you can't break out. Now, all of this seems abstract, so let me show you how this plays out in practice. So I'm going to give you an example, and what I would like you to do as you listen to me is don't just listen to me. Put yourself in the situation that I am describing. Now, here's the deal. You're going to an important meeting. Got it? You're going to an important meeting and you're running late. And you are driving. All right? You're going to an important meeting, you're running late, you're driving, and you are stuck in a traffic jam. Do you have traffic jams in Prague? Well, imagine that you're in California. Okay? So, you're going to an important meeting, you're running late, you're stuck in a traffic jam, and not just a run-of-the-mill traffic jam, but the mother of all traffic jams. It's a really, really, really hot day. Let's assume that the thermometer is stuck at 40 degrees, and those of you who come from America, that's about 105 degrees. And the air conditioning in your car has courteously broken down. Okay, now really put yourself in that situation. You're going to an important meeting, you're running late, you're stuck in a massive traffic jam, it's really hot, you have no air conditioning, and suddenly a car comes in front of you and almost causes an accident. And then he cuts in front of another car in front of you and almost causes a second accident. What are your feelings towards the driver of that car? Would it be fair to say that loving kindness is not it? It would be fair to say that loving kindness is not it. So maybe a good thing that you do not have a firearm in the car, right? You're really, really, really pissed off at the driver of that car. So let me now share some information about the driver of that car. He has just received some bad news. His son was involved in a very serious accident and has to be operated on immediately. And he is desperately trying to get to the hospital, and he has no knowledge of whether or not he will ever see his son alive again. Got that? Now, what happens when I share that information with you? Can you feel your rage, your anger dissipate, leaving you with compassion for a fellow human being in an unfortunate situation? Yes? Okay, so you can feel your anger dissipate. Now, here's the thing. You don't really know whether the guy who cut you off was an inconsiderate jerk or a distraught father, correct? But now that I have shared this information with you, don't hire a private detective to look into the matter and report back to you. You're never going to know whether or not the guy who cut you off was an inconsiderate jerk or a distraught father, right? But the more important point is, it really doesn't matter. You have the option of deciding which is the emotional domain you are going to occupy. Let me repeat that. You have the option of deciding which is the emotional domain you are going to occupy. In all likelihood, until I just pointed it out to you, you did not even recognize that, number one, you had a choice, and number two, you utilized that choice. You made a decision. In all likelihood, it happened so fast you didn't even recognize that. But now that I'm explicitly drawing it to your attention, do you recognize that you had a choice and you made the choice? Face such a junction in your life dozens of times every day. And in the vast majority of these instances, you choose to occupy a space where you're angry, depressed, dejected, rejected, and you do not even recognize that you had a choice and you exercise the choice. And the reason you do that is because of the mental chatter you entertain and the mental models that you hold. Most of us try to bring about profound behavioral change by an effort of will. Darn it, I am going to stop smoking. I am going to pass on dessert. Every time you try to bring about behavioral change by an act of will, you're doing violence to yourself. Odds are pretty good you won't succeed, but even if you exercise a lot of will and you do succeed, there will probably be byproducts that you're not very happy about. There is a better way. And this is a better way that I've been teaching in my programs for dozens of years. It absolutely works. And the better way is the following. Don't try to bring about behavioral change by an effort of will, but instead examine your mental models. And as you make changes in your mental models, you see the world differently. You become a different person. As you become a different person, your behavior change happens automatically as a byproduct. It is a much better, a far superior method. And I'm going to share that with you, or many of the components of that with you today. First, there is something called a mental screensaver. And this is something that I advocate for all of you. Think about some time in your life when things were going swimmingly well. You were on top of the world, you were excited, you had a sense of purpose, your work was going smoothly. Think about in great detail, recreate it in your mind. Where were you? What was happening? Who else was involved? How did you feel? Impress it upon your memory. Make it a movie. What I generally advise in my programs is for persons to have 3 or 4 such mental screensavers in different areas of their life. So one could be in your professional life, one could be with your family, one could be with your friends. Have 3 or 4 or more of these mental screensavers, create each one in detail, and play it over in your mind. Okay, it's a very powerful method. Then there is appreciation and gratitude. Day-to-day life, as you go about it, you don't feel incredibly privileged. You feel stressed out. You have to actually experience the feeling of being appreciative. You can't think it. Okay? And if you are a left-brain type A individual, and I'll wager that this room is full of left-brain type A individual, it'll take some time before you can get from thinking to feeling. But persist until you do. So here's what you need to do. 5 minutes before you go to bed, actually start doing things which will bring about this feeling of appreciation and gratitude. The biggest challenge people had is, Professor Rao, I started doing this exercise and I could never finish it because I fell asleep. If that happens, sit up in bed or stand up until you do it, and then lie down. When you get up in the morning, don't go immediately to the space of, there's too much to do and I don't have enough time to do it all. Go back to this feeling of appreciation and gratitude. And many times during the day, consciously sit down and let appreciation and gratitude well up. As with all things, the more you practice it, the better you'll get at it, and the more you'll benefit. But if you do it last thing at night and again first thing in the morning, one problem that will be solved is you can't go to sleep. Or a cause which is bigger than you are and which brings a greater good to a greater community, and you have tremendous flexibility in defining both the greater good and the greater community. But it's only if you can do that that you will be able to live a life such as I laid out for you before. Once again, as you're going through your life, remember, only you can define what is the cathedral you're building, but it is hugely important that you define it and then you continue to build it, because if you are breaking rocks, you're going to live a mediocre, meaningless existence. Now, this is a very powerful tool that I'm going to share with you. There is something that you do, and you do it multiple times every day, and it is hugely deleterious to your well-being and existence, but you do it anyway. Now, what is this thing that you do multiple times every day that you don't know is having a negative effect upon your life? It is a habit we all have of sticking a label on whatever happens to us. And the 2 labels that I'm particularly interested in are the good thing, bad thing label. Now think about that. No matter what happens to you, in your head, you immediately classify it as either good or bad. Nothing is neutral. You know, it's either slightly good or slightly bad. And most of us tend to use the bad thing label 3 to 10 times as often as a good thing label. No matter what happens, no matter what the event is, an event does not cause suffering. Let's assume you get fired. You now no longer have a job. But the moment you go, oh my God, I got fired, How do I pay my mortgage? My son's tuition is due. This is terrible. And the moment you say this is terrible, at that instant suffering begins. Suffering doesn't begin when something happens. Suffering begins the instant you decide that what happened is terrible, unbearable, unfortunate, and you cannot tolerate it. At that instant, suffering begins. So something happened to you in your life that at the time it happened you thought was terrible, but now you can look back and say, hey, that was actually pretty good. So if something like that happened to you in the past, is there any possibility that what you are today about to label bad could in X years turn out to be pretty good? Is there the slightest possibility? If there is the slightest possibility of that happening, why are you in a hurry to label it bad? Think about it. Why are you in a hurry to label it bad? And if you then ask yourself the next question, is there anything that I can do to actually make it a good thing? And all of a sudden, courses and avenues of action will open up to you that you probably never even conceived before. This is a method and an exercise which will make you incredibly resilient. And if you get in the habit of using it regularly, so it's no longer a habit, but part of this is who I am, you will find that people will look up to you because no matter what happens, nothing phases you. So once again, something happened to you, you're about to label it bad, think, is there any possible way by which this could actually turn out to be a good thing? And then, is there anything I can do to make it so? And you'll be surprised at how many times you'll be able to skate off what would otherwise have led to dejection or depression. A great deal of the time when you suffer not because of what you're doing, but because of your mental chatter. How many of you are stuck in a job you don't particularly like? How many of you have a boss you find toxic? In every case, you have in the back of your mind something going on. This is terrible. Why is this happening to me? I don't want to do this. I deserve better. Think about that. It's just a thought in your head. And if you can get to the point where you observe it and recognize that it is a thought in your head and pour all of your attention into what it is you have to do, as opposed to thinking about how much you don't want to do it, you'll find that it becomes bearable and sometimes even enjoyable. Goals are very important, but they're very important because they give you direction. Once the direction has been set, forget about the goals. Don't give it a thought. Instead, pour all of your emotional energy into what are the actions that I can take that will help me get to my goal. Remember, actions are more under your control than the outcome. We talked earlier about control. The outcome is beyond your control. The assassins wanted to get Prince Ferdinand before in the motorcade, and they didn't succeed. Ferdinand, Queen Sophie wanted to get back to the capital because Sarajevo was too dangerous, and she did not succeed. Brexit happened. Trump became president. Outcomes are beyond your control. What is under your control, at least to some extent, are what are the activities that you undertake. So put all of your emotional energy into the activity and not on the goal. And when you do that, two things happen. Number one, you actually start enjoying the journey. Most of the time, we're so focused on the destination that we forget the journey is the only thing we have. The destination is a mirage. By all means, set a goal, but recognize the importance of the goal is that it sets direction. And once the direction has been set, disengage from the goal, put all your emotional energy into what are the activities that you have to undertake, and give that your best. And paradoxically, the more you disengage from the goal, the higher the probability that you will actually achieve it. It's paradoxical but true. This one needs no explanation. Laugh. My recommendation is everyone here should read at least one book by P.G. Wodehouse a month. If any of you are not familiar with P.G. Wodehouse, he's an English humorist and rib-ticklingly funny. Now, this is another powerful technique I'm going to share with you. Comes from Shakespeare. And this one comes in particular from Julius Caesar. So if you're familiar with Julius Caesar, what happened is Brutus and the conspirators decided they were going to assassinate Julius Caesar because they wanted to run Rome. And they thought that if they did, then they could collectively rule Rome. But the assassins did not recognize, remember, nothing is under your control, and they did not foresee two things happening. Number one, Mark Antony got up and gave his famous "Friends, Romans, countrymen" speech, and that turned the population against the assassins. And then Octavian Caesar got together a legion and came after them. And they never expected that. So they scattered. And Octavian Caesar came after them anyway. And then, before they met at the Battle of Philippi, Cassius came up to Brutus to ask him for something. And Brutus, you must recognize, had already started regretting his role in the assassination of Julius Caesar, because when Julius Caesar said "et tu, Brute," it really struck home. So Brutus declined Cassius's request, and then he said, "And whether we shall meet again, I know not. Therefore our everlasting farewell take. Forever and forever farewell, Cassius. If we should meet again, we shall smile. If not, why then this parting was well made." Now think about that. Many of you have come here from distant countries. You have left spouses, you have left children. Is there any guarantee that you will see them again? Think about it. And if each time you part, you have in the back of your mind, "And whether we shall meet again, I know not," what will that do to your presence at that time? What happens with all of the petty irritations that you carry around with you? If you have that in the back of your mind as a consciousness, I really don't know if I will see again, so every parting is the last one. It completely transforms your life. Now, understand it is extraordinarily difficult, maybe even impossible, to maintain that level of consciousness all of the time. So don't try. But it is possible to maintain it some of the time. So consciously pick, for the next hour, whoever I meet, I'm going to do it with that consciousness. And as you do it, you will find that it becomes more and more habitual. You'll do it more and more of the time. Your relationships will improve. Your life literally will be transformed. And you can say thank you to Shakespeare. This is another powerful model. Einstein said, we revere Einstein because he was a great scientist. He discovered the theory of relativity. He discovered the photoelectric effect, which is why he got the Nobel Prize, by the way. He didn't get the Nobel for the theory of relativity. He got it because he discovered the photoelectric effect. But Einstein said the most important question you're ever going to ask yourself is, Is the universe friendly? Most of us believe that the universe is indifferent to us. Here I am doing my thing, here's the universe doing its thing, and the universe doesn't know I exist and couldn't care less. Some of the time the universe seems to be acting with me, some of the time it seems to be acting against me, but most of the time it's simply random, and the universe neither knows about me nor cares about me. That's the world in which we live, correct? But what if the universe was not indifferent towards you? What if the universe was not only aware of you, but was friendlily disposed towards you? Think about that. Sometimes the universe does things which you perceive as distinctly unfriendly. But supposing it wasn't really. It's a little bit like you're a small child and what you want is a tub of ice cream, and what your parents give you are fruit and vegetables, and you don't want fruits and vegetables, you want a tub of ice cream. The universe gives you a fruit and vegetables, you're not happy about it. But it's only much later when you have a different level of consciousness that you can say, thank God my parents gave me fruit and vegetables, right? What if the universe was like that? Yes, it gives you stuff that you don't necessarily want, but what if that was exactly what you needed? What if? Can I prove the universe is benevolent? Of course not. But can you prove the universe is not benevolent? Of course not. So regardless of whether or not the universe is benevolent, if you believed the universe was benevolent, your life would improve significantly. And there is a simple method for deciding. Simple method. By the way, just because you recognize that a model is intellectually superior doesn't necessarily mean you can adopt it. But there is a way in which you can start inculcating this, and that is actively start looking for occasions when the universe seems to be acting with you. And you know something? The more you look, the more evidence you will find. Okay? All right. Now I am going to play a short video clip, and let me give you a little example, a little history behind that. This comes from the film Gandhi. And Gandhi had an incredible ability to do something, and what it is that he did, I'm going to tell you later. But this has to do with the colonial struggle in India. And one of the things that he did is the British decided basically that salt would be taxed, and Indians would no longer be allowed to make salt as they did before, but salt would be a royal monopoly and you'd have to pay tax on it. And of course, in a tropical country, that's a big deal because salt is not just a flavor, it's also a preservative in a hot tropical country. So Gandhi decided that he was going to not stand for this, so he led a protest march. And, this was a Dundee Salt March, and they went and made salt. Basically there was a salt protest. And then he was going to march on a factory which manufactured salt. And what you're going to see is what happened at that time. So I want you to watch it. It's a somewhat powerful clip. So I want you to watch it, and then I'll tell you how it relates to what we're talking about. So, what kind of leadership qualities should exist in an individual that he can persuade large numbers of people to behave in the manner that you just did? Gandhi had an incredible ability to bring out the dog in you. Let me explain what I mean. This comes from the Native American tradition, and it talked about a young brave who was about to grow up and take his place among the elders of the tribe. And as a final rite of passage, he had to have a meeting with the medicine man. And the medicine man told him, here is this dog, kind, loving, intelligent, faithful, and here is this wolf, malevolent, vicious, ready to strike at and kill anything. And the dog and the wolf are fighting. And the dog and the wolf are both inside you. And the young brave asked, which one is going to win? Said, whichever one you feed. Now think about that. Inside each one of us are altruistic, let's help our fellow man and make the world a better place impulses. And inside each of us there are let me get everything I can for myself and the devil take the hindmost impulses. And they're always at war with each other. Don't make the mistake of thinking you're only going to feed the dog and starve the wolf. It ain't going to happen. The best that you can hope for is going to feed the dog a little bit more than you feed the wolf. But as you feed the dog more, it becomes stronger. And it is your responsibility not only to feed the dog in yourself, but also to identify and feed the dog in others. And when you do that, one day the dog in you is going to become friends with the dog in the other person, and then magic happens. That really was Gandhi's genius. Irrespective of what you may think about his political activities, he had an incredible ability to bring out the best in large numbers of people. Contrast that to the politicians you have in the world today. But let's leave the field of national events, which is beyond the purview of my talk, and think about your life. Every day, in every interaction, you always have a choice. Am I feeding the dog or am I feeding the wolf? And if you're conscious of that and you consciously feed the dog in yourself, and you consciously try to identify and feed the dog in whoever you're interacting with, you'll find that both your lives are transformed. And here is a practical tip. Every time you feel overwhelmed, just stop and take 10 deep, slow breaths. Most of the time, we breathe in a very shallow manner, and every time you're in the grip of a strong emotion, anger, lust, hate, you're breathing very fast and using only the upper third of your thoracic cavity. Pause, take 10 deep, slow breaths. Breathe all the way into your abdomen, feel it expand, feel it contract as you breathe out. Take 10 deep, slow breaths, and you'll be surprised at how quickly you get centered. And when you're taking 10 deep, slow breaths, put your attention on your breath, follow it in, follow it out. Simple technique. And with that, I am done. Thank you very much for being a wonderful audience. And we still have time for questions.
Let me just say one thing to the audience.
Sure.
Okay?
Absolutely.
First off, we want to present you a gift.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for taking your time to be with us today. And I also, go ahead, girls.
This is
give
wonderful.
It to the man, yeah.
Thank you. Oh, come on. Come on, come on, come on, come on. This is lovely, huh? I've never had more charming people present me with a gift. Thank you. What's your name?
My name's Ella.
And your name?
My name is Katka.
Thank you very much, Alad Katka. Thank you.